2 Kings 5, verses 15 through 6-7 is a succession of three stories that reveal significant truths about the heart, about how God works in our lives, and how deceptive the desires of the flesh can be, and how really they just don't deliver, but how God can be a gracious provider in the midst of them. So the first of those stories is we're seeing the aftermath of Naaman's healing. He was healed by leprosy, and he recants. He recants his allegiance to the idols that he was serving, and he believes that in the one true God of Israel, Yahweh. And that relationship with him begins to transform him, and he is now going to be living a life that is different. We see that in his generosity. We see that in his commitment to worship the Lord and him alone. So we see that this relationship is what is the source of the transformation in Naaman's life. And this is an important truth, because when there's a lot of when we see a lot of issues in the world, when we see a lot of sin, and we're wondering, okay, what's the solution? How can we overcome sin? Well, the solution is that people need to have a relationship with God that transforms them from the inside out, and that through the gospel proclamation, people come to know that same transformation, and that change begins to take place. It's slow. It's not as quick as we would like it to be, but the only way to see real and lasting transformation is through the grace of God by His transforming work. And as we are now following Christ in faith, we need to, like Naaman, make a hard cut with our past idols, our past ways. Jesus saved us from our sin, not so that we could continue in the same things that we're ashamed of already. He wants us to walk in the joy of righteous living. And we see that there's a great power in that, and there's great joy in that. And then we see over here in Gehazi's story, it's very tragic. We see the pathway of sin. This is the same pathway that Eve followed, the same pathway that Achan followed, and now Gehazi as well. And it's one that we follow often in our own lives. Gehazi sees Naaman's wealth, he covets it in his heart, and he takes that which doesn't belong from it, and then he tries to hide it. That's the pathway of sin. We see, we covet, we take, we hide. Whenever we're in a situation where we're given into sin, we see a pathway that sin is offering us. We covet that, we take hold of it, and then the shame comes, and we either hide or try to cover it up with whatever it may be. Maybe it's just words, or we're just digging ourselves in a hole. Whatever it is that we try to cover up what sin had just occurred. And if we're not in Christ, the end result of that, of course, is judgment from God. And greed is one of those things that just penetrates the church on every continent, every denomination. Greed is something that we have to concern ourselves with, because greed will rob us of joy, and it will rob us of just the righteous life that Christ desires for us, the righteous life that brings about peace. So just think about that, talk about that, because greed is also one of those things that can slip in through the guise of righteousness. People might say, well, I'm just trying to be prepared, and really they're acting in greed. And now people might be trying to be prepared, and they're just being prepared. So this is a good time to just speak that truth, let the Spirit search out the hearts of your life group. And then lastly, in this time when I wrote this, I was initially thinking in one way, but it's such an encouraging story, the floating axe head. It was a time of great injustice in that time. There was a time of great poverty, famine. This guy was poor. He didn't own his own axe, so he was borrowing it, and he was worried about when he lost it. He said, I'm going to be enslaved. Like this, I can't. I don't know what I'm going to do. But God saw him in that moment, caused the axe head to float. He provided for him in that small moment. He cared about the little things of this guy, the guy that we don't even know his name. And that's just so encouraging. When we don't feel seen, when we feel like, Lord, how are we going to move forward in this? We can be confident that God provides for us in the day-to-day. He sees us. He cares about the little things of our life. And He is working for His glory and our good. And we can trust Him in that. Even when hardships come, we can trust Him in the midst of that time. So, some good things here. 4 ways to pray for a generous heart. A good article excerpt from David Mathis from Desiring God. So just look at these. I think you're going to be inclined to press into one of these 3 areas. Focus in on one, hit on the others. It's going to be a great and hopefully encouraging lesson for your life group.